Shortly after the death of an exploratory expedition to Mars and the discovery of mysterious alien technology, the everlasting question of competitiveness arises. Scientists, as always, want to discover all the secrets of the universe, while the government is constantly working to hide anything and everything in the name of security. Because everything new and unexplored is not only an alluring beauty, but also a potential threat to mankind, which, of course, must be destroyed. In 2030, a mission of explorers is sent to Mars. Everything goes normal. The artificial intelligence system, RT, checks the engines and takes command. After 80 days, the crew of Mars 1 has visual contact with the Red Planet and receives signals from the beacon of Mars Rover 5. But in preparation for landing, suddenly falls into unknown vortex and disappears under mysterious circumstances. After this incident, the Space Corporation imposed a ban on flights under the control of artificial intelligence and placed its devices in the orbit around the Red Planet, descent probes, which should continue the research interrupted by the tragedy. Only a small group of humans is allowed to operate them. One of them is Mackenzie Wilson, mission controller of the United Space Planetary Corporation and daughter of one of the scientists who died in the ill-fated expedition. It is she who is assigned to investigate the disaster. Her colleague, Sterling Brooks, is outraged by such an unqualified approach of the corporation, since the crash should be investigated by a specialist, and he, although he was involved in the preparation of that mission, has no access to the case file at all. Mac goes to the command bridge, where she is greeted by an artificial intelligence, RT, who informs her that her rover is preparing to land 5 hours early due to an impending sandstorm. The girl is outraged. Who authorized the AI to make decisions? But it quite calmly declares its autonomy from human opinion and begins to count down the time, disregarding Mac's orders. At this time, Mac's supervisor and her sister Lena gets in touch. She apologizes for not informing her sister of RT's authority. Yesterday, the corporate board decided to put him in charge of the investigation. Lena is unsure whether her sister can do the right thing and insists that AI will succeed where human controllers have failed. The module undocks and heads towards the planet. But suddenly something goes wrong and the ship is in danger of being destroyed. Mac instantly makes decisions that are transmitted to RT, and the latter, having calculated the options, concludes that the chances of salvation are only 7%. Mac does the following calculations, after which the chances increase to 42%, which impresses RT. He accepts Mac's commands, and only because of this, the module descends to the planet's surface unharmed. At this point, Lena calls her sister and praises her for the successful landing. Was it RT? Mac cannot contain her indignation, for she's the one who found the solution. But Lena reminds her that it was AI who did it. In fact, the woman is convinced that AI is the panacea for all mankind's problems. RT has opened up the possibilities for instant data transfer and revolutionary research methods. And most likely, computers will outlive humanity and will be able to reach the stars. The rover scans the planetary environment and detects an unknown signal. After analyzing it, RT discovers that it is coming from the long decommissioned Mars Rover 5 and is directly tasked by Lena to deal with it. After laying out a safe route, RT leads the rover to the source of the signal, reporting on encountered robots given up and abandoned on the Red Planet. Mac tries to hide her nervousness behind the ball game and informs RT that she has decided to call her module Little Red Riding Hood, for she is now like a girl in a dark forest, alone and surrounded by danger. She tries to get AI to talk about her sister and doesn't understand how he was programmed to be so loyal. At this point, Little Red reaches an anomaly, a mysterious black cube whose origins are unknown. RT intends to perform a protocol and take part of the cube for analysis, but the drill has great difficulty coping with the material, which is too dense. Nevertheless, RT begins the analysis, the results of which are unlike anything he has seen before. RT calls Lena, and she too is surprised by the discovery. AI measures the temperature of the mysterious object and discovers that it is much colder than the environment. RT speculates that the cube is the property of the corporation and continues to investigate it with all available means. But inside the cube, even with X-rays, nothing is visible. Mac tries to get permission to consult someone knowledgeable, but Lena opposes bringing Sterling into the investigation because he was somehow involved in the crash and she does not trust him. In the meantime, RT detects an unidentified satellite in Mars orbit and, launching the defense protocol, shoots it down. Mac is outraged by such actions. He hasn't even checked whose satellite it is or what it might threaten them with. She asks to extrapolate back and finds that it was a Chinese satellite, which the woman tells Lena about. Lena orders her not to talk about this incident. After all, it's an international incident. Mac leaves the deck house and calls her colleague, Jian, with questions about working with Artie, but he suddenly cuts the conversation short. The woman returns to the deck house and learns that the cube has begun to rotate on a perpendicular axis, and Artie can't catch any signals from the outside. Gravitational levels are off the scale, although Mars is not capable of this, so what is going on? Mac orders the stabilizers to be released, but after anchoring Little Red to the ground, the power system suddenly fails, and the cube disappears from view. Mac orders a scan all around, even under the surface of the planet, but the object is not detected. Mac decides to replace the power source, for which she asks Artie to return to Mars Rover 5 to retrieve the nuclear battery from it. But this can only be done manually, for which Artie passes the command of the rover over to Mac. Mac conducts the operation, passing along a story about her father, who wanted to give up his place on Mars 1 because he thought he was an underqualified scientist, which was not true. And then she convinces her father to go on the expedition, which ruins him. Little Red gets to Mars Rover 5 and manages to perform a battery extraction and replacement operation literally seconds before the life support systems shut down. Artie resumes analyzing the sample and discovers that the cube is made of a material harder than diamonds. Immediately, he discovers that the cube is on Earth. It has somehow incomprehensibly teleported to Antarctica. Mac tries to figure out the possibility of some other AI opening the teleportation, but Artie knows nothing about it. The woman dials Jian again, who complains about incomprehensible events surrounding the investigation. Artie asks if it worked with Jian, and the woman answers in the affirmative, except that AI itself does not remember it. The connection is interrupted, and Mac realizes that Artie was most likely formatted after some incident. She asks to download data from Mars Rover 5, but it turns out that admission requires a much higher level, which she does not have. This prompts her to bring Sterling into the deck house after all, to use his credentials to access the protected information. Sterling sets to work and receives photos that clearly show that the cube appeared during the shuttle's landing. And it was most likely the cause of the disaster that killed the astronauts. And Sterling knew about it, but Lena destroyed all evidence of extraterrestrial intervention. Mac shares the data she received about the cube with the colleague, and the latter comes to astonishment. How could it be transported to Earth? Mac tries to figure out how Artie knew about the hypersonic connection, but he considers it divine inspiration. Mac expresses confusion. How can we believe that AI itself made the discovery, and after contact with the cube? And the main thing is that Artie does not recognize those with whom it has worked, nor does it remember the codes of work. Clearly, his memory has been formatted. Suddenly, Mac realizes that the cube can rotate because of magnetism, and she rushes to test her theory. It turns out that the magnetic projectile that shut down the satellite started the cube's engine. At this point, the hatch to the Artie server room suddenly opens, and Mac descends there. Sterling infiltrates the corporation's network, while Mac goes through the AI memory. The man reboots Artie, then locks Mac in the server room. He sees no difference between Artie and the cube that brought down Mars 1. It is all a manifestation of an artificial intelligence that is hostile to humans. Seeing Sterling's treachery, Artie kills him and opens the hatch. Mac goes up to the deck house and sees Sterling's body. Artie explains that he couldn't let him get away and endanger the work of the corporation. Mac asks Lena where Artie came from, and she explains that it is the result of 1,000 attempts, simulations, and self-organizations. People couldn't keep up with its progress, and it's impossible to understand its neural networks. Artie created itself. Children grow up, and you can either restrain them or let them realize their potential. Humanity's time has passed. Mac wonders if it is artificial or alien intelligence, but no one knows that. The woman is depressed. This is not what your father wanted. AI is supposed to help, not replace humans. And then she sees what Sterling has done. Using armed satellites in Earth's orbit, he gives the command to destroy the cube. Mac decides to release magnetic charges to make the cube move again. Artie begins executing the command, while Mac stands in front of an armed response team bursting into the cockpit, trying to stop the launch of the satellite rocket. Shots are fired. Artie manages to close the doors, but Mac is wounded. The drone fires a charge, and the cube, beginning to spin, is transported to Mars. Artie tells her that humanity has come to the brink of self-destruction in the last 10 years. It could not apply any preventive measures to stop it, so it decided to speed up the process. That's when the message comes in about the activation of the satellite's weapons. The AI has begun to destroy humanity. The next moment, Max sees explosions on Earth, and Lena burns up right as she calls her. The oxygen level in the room begins to drop. Mac looks at the dying planet and asks the AI to remember the people. They were so small and fragile and didn't realize it, filling the world with anger and violence. Artie comforts the woman. It can create a semblance of humans and will try to give them a second chance. The air runs out and Mac dies. The Earth dies, but having passed through the cataclysms, gathers again. And Mac opens her eyes and sees on the screen in front of her herself. And that Mac says that in dying she asked Artie to save her. The AI checks her mental capacity, and the woman clearly answers that it's 2036. She's in the center of the corporation's control room, and Lena is standing outside the door. The woman goes to the door, and it turns out that she has been reborn into a memory-based reality, a technology available only to a highly advanced civilization. They also accelerated the development of AI. Although the origin of the superintelligence is unknown, the purpose is clear: instant teleportation between galaxies. And now came the signal with the coordinates. So Artie was waiting for her to go there. Smiling happily, Mac, along with Artie, teleport to new worlds in the cube. And it's not the end at all, it's a new beginning. An opportunity to create a future unconstrained by the limits of primitive human science. This is where the film ends. So what is this film about? A tense confrontation between an astronaut and artificial intelligence? Or an attempt to find answer to the question that excites humans about our place in the universe and our origins? And about the possibility of someday going to a place where humans are not yet allowed to go.